Ahoy hoy everybody, my name is Caroline and I like to read books, so let's talk about them. Today's video is going to be my August wrap up and I read 14 books this month, which I am super proud of, but I'm gonna kind of try and talk quickly about each of them in this video because I don't want it to go for ages. So I will leave the link to my Goodreads page down in the description box, and if you want to know more about my thoughts on certain books, then you can find full reviews there. The first book I read is Challenger Deep by Neal Shusterman, which is the story of a teenage boy named Caden and his descent into mental illness and his ongoing struggle with schizophrenia. And the story switches between reality and his delusions, which was a really interesting and kind of confusing at times method of storytelling. I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars because the writing was really honest and at times it was confronting and emotional, and it stuck with me for a while after I read it. So I would definitely recommend this to anyone who's looking for a young adult book that deals with mental illness in a really honest way. Next up, I read The Smell of Other People's Houses by Bonnie Sue Hitchcock, which is a really cute story set in Alaska in the 1970s, and it follows these 4 teenagers who are kind of just really struggling to find their place in the world. The writing and the characters in this book were really good, but what I didn't like was how short it was. This book is only 200 pages, and in a book where we have 4 different perspectives that don't really cross over, that means we only have 50 pages for each character to have a complete arc, and it's just not enough. So although I enjoyed this story, I didn't really love it. After that, I read book 10 of the Walking Dead comics by Robert Kirkman, and oh man, I just love this series so much. It's so entertaining. This book especially, it was incredibly fast-paced and non-stop. The characters didn't get any chance to really rest or reflect or anything. It was just non-stop drama. I love Negan and the Saviors, and I just powered through this one, and I'm super excited to continue the series. Next up, I read Harry Potter and the Cursed Child by J.K. Rowling, Jack Thorne, and John Tiffany, and I really didn't want to read this, but once I did, I quite enjoyed it. It's very different to the Harry Potter that I grew up with, but I still gave it 4 out of 5 stars because I liked that the story switched between the original trio and to Albus Severus at Hogwarts, and I've already done a full review of this, and I'm just gonna leave the link to that in case you guys are interested. Next up, I read The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. This is the story of Andy, who is the daughter of a politician and has her summer all planned out, and then suddenly her dad is involved in a scandal and her plans change, and she really struggles with that. And this is the second book by Morgan Matson that I've read, and although I preferred Since You've Been Gone to this one, this was still a really cute story, and what I liked about it was how much it was based on relationships between family and friends instead of just being about a romantic relationship. After that, I read Nevernight by Jay Kristoff, which is the first in a fantasy series about an assassin named Mia who goes to like Hogwarts for assassins, and she makes friends and she makes enemies and she learns all this cool stuff. And I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars, and I've done a full review of it, which I'll just leave the link to in case you guys are interested. Next up, I quickly read Anya's Ghost by Vera Brosgol, and this is a cute graphic novel about a girl in high school who falls down a well one day and meets a ghost there who kind of becomes her friend and starts helping her get her life back on track. And it's just a really cute and quirky story with a bit of a creepy twist in it, and I did like it. I read it really quickly, but it's not my favorite graphic novel. Next up, I read Passenger by Alexandra Bracken, which I've been putting off for a while because of the hype, but I'm really glad that I finally read it because the writing was really good and the story was fun and addictive and clever. I wasn't a huge fan of the relationship between the 2 main characters. It felt too much like insta-love and kind of became the whole story when it shouldn't have. I didn't really like the ending either. I was kind of disappointed by it. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm still curious, so we'll read the sequel when it comes out. Next up, I read Volume 4 of Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, and whilst this wasn't my favorite of the series so far, I did still really enjoy it. I love the dynamic between the characters and the introduction of some new really cool characters, and again, I love the art style and just everything about this series, and I am really keen to continue it. Next up, I did a reread because I finally wanted to finish this series before the new book comes out, and I read Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas, and I really liked this. I liked it more the second time I read it than I did the first time. I just found the characters to be really likable and genuine. I liked their relationships with each other, and I liked that this book is fantasy, but it's a really good mix of like fun and action and romance and mystery and murder and just all that good stuff. After that, I read Crown of Midnight, which is book 2 in the series, and this is probably my favorite in the series so far. Again, I loved the relationships between characters. One relationship in particular is my favorite of the whole series, but we're not going to talk about that. I just really loved this book, especially in terms of character development, because I complained in book 1 that Selena was too perfect, and in this book we see her be a lot more human and all those sorts of things, and I just really loved it and it was awesome. Obviously, after that I read book 3, which is Heir of Fire, and all I knew going into this book was that there was a new character in it named Rowan, who people had kind of mixed feelings about, and I ended up really liking him despite myself. I loved him and his relationship with our main character. We also get introduced to Manon in this book, and I really liked her as well. I found out that her name's meant to be pronounced Manon, but I can't stop saying it Manon, so I'm kind of stuck with it. But I did really like her, even though she's not necessarily a good character. I just found her really intriguing and surprisingly likable. My favorite thing about this book is probably that it's so heavily centered on healing and kind of rediscovering yourself, as lame as that sounds. I just found it a really nice arc in this story, and this whole book was so great, and the ending was so great, and I just loved it a lot. After that, I actually didn't read Queen of Shadows because I hadn't bought it yet, so I read The Loose Ends List by Carrie Firestone, and this is a really great story about a family who go on a Death with Dignity cruise because their grandma is terminally ill, and I've done a full review of this, which I'll just leave the link to in case you guys are interested. The final book that I read this month, of course, was Queen of Shadows by Sarah J Maas, and hot damn, this book was so good. I cried quite a lot in it, and I went into this not knowing anything, and it was just so amazing in terms of character development and like game-changing plot points, and there were new characters and all these sorts of things, and I just loved it so much. I love this series, and I am so excited for Empire of Storms to come out. It's kind of killing me. Oh man. That's it for my wrap-up video though, guys. I upload videos Wednesdays and Saturdays, so be sure to like this one and subscribe to my channel and tune in on those days for more bookish goodness. Toodaloo!